Thank you very much. The administration has informed me it's late in the day. It's permitted to sleep. The only request is don't snore.
No promises.
No promises. Person and act as background for the theology of the body, a philosophical work for a theological work. I'll begin with an ancient understanding of two laws of friendship. The first mark of friendship, this is from Aristotle's Ethics, of the love of beings without soul, we do not use the word friendship, because there's no mutual love, antiphilisis, nor is there a willing of good for the other. It would surely be ridiculous to wish wine well. If one wishes anything for it, it is that it may keep, so that one may have it oneself. For a friend, however, we say, we should will what is good for his sake. Ekenu henike. It's the first mark of friendship. The second mark of friendship, inasmuch as they share, koinos is common, there's friendship. The proverb is right, what belongs to friends is common. For friendship is in communion. Koinonia, it's the Greek word usually translated in Latin as communion. These two principles of these two laws of friendship are in some way parallel to the two principles in Gaudium et Spes, but lifted to the supernatural level. These two aspects of friendship, mutual goodwill and communion of life, sum up the whole truth about friendship. And they parallel the two laws of the life of persons in Gaudium et Spes, which, according to John Paul, sum up the whole truth about man and woman. A remarkable statement in Mulieris Dignitatem. Two principles that are somehow comprehensive of the whole. There are two sentences in Gaudium et Spes 24. Paragraph 3, actually. There's more to 24. The Lord Jesus, when he prays to the Father that all may be one as we are one, offering perspectives closed to human reason, points to some likeness between the union of the divine persons and the union of God's sons in truth and love. That's the first sentence. There's a main clause. The Lord Jesus points to some likeness. There's a temporal clause that supplies the evidence. When he prays that all may be one as we are one. And a participial phrase offering perspectives closed to human reason. It's a supernatural mystery. We know it from the words of Jesus. Here's the second sentence. It makes an argument from the first one. This likeness shows, that's the main clause, that man, who is the only creature on earth God willed for itself, cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of self. So there you have the short main clause. This likeness shows. What does it show? The subordinate clause spells it out. That man cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of self. Before that main point, you get a relative clause that introduces another truth, a more elementary truth. Man who is the only creature on earth that God willed for itself. The council adds Luke 17:33 The context of that saying in this passage in Luke is the troubles of the end times. It's one of the most frequent sayings in the Gospel. 6 times it occurs in the Gospels, mostly in the context of the cross. Whoever seeks to secure his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life will make it live. For secure, the Greek word is peripoieo. Poieo is to make, and peri around, so make a protective wall. Make it live. Zoogoneo. Zoe is life, and goneo is beget. The gonois are the parents. Comparison between these 4 laws now. There's a likeness. For friendship, one says, friends will what is good for the sake of their friend. In Gaudium et Spes, God wills each person for itself, that is, willing what is good for their own sake. Friendship, one says, involves a giving to one's friend a share in one's own life, and vice versa. Friendship is in communion. And in Gaudium et Spes, one cannot find one's own life without a sincere gift of self. The differences are also very strong. The 2 marks of friendship are aspects of natural life arising from human nature. The first of the 2 laws in Gaudium et Spes 24 is quite like willing the good of a friend for the friend's sake, but by implication, it's raised to the supernatural level. Each of us is willed for his or her own sake, but for a particular end. The second of the 2 laws in Gaudium et Spes takes up and integrates the communion of friendship into a supernatural life, a life revealed in the words and deeds of Jesus. The new communion brought by Jesus is a participation in the life of the Trinity and implies following him to the cross. And the council is quite clear, without being revealed by Jesus, this mystery would be closed to human reason. How should we locate person and act in these 4, with respect to these 4 laws? Given the 4 laws, the 2 laws of friendship, friends will the good of the other for the other's sake, and friendship implies a communion of life. And the 2 laws in Gaudium et Spes 24, God wills each person for, each creature for itself, created person for itself. And we only find ourselves in the sincere gift of self. Person and act seems to have a rather limited place in the first of these. The law that each friend wills the good of the other for the other's sake plays a key role as the personalist norm in love and responsibility. Person and act, by contrast, does not approach the person through the personalistic norm primarily, but through acts that show the person's self-dominion in acting. This approach to the person through acts characteristic by self-dominion has led some interpreters to see Wojtyła as Stoic. Early critics of Wojtyła went in that direction. interested mainly in self-dominion, self-control, even self-repression is the charge. Nothing could be further from the truth, I think. The theology of the body shows that the center of John Paul II's interest lies in self-giving love, rooted in a deeply affective vision of life, the opposite of Stoic. Why then, in person and act, the emphasis, the focus on acts that imply self-dominion in particular? It's good to look simply at dictionary definitions of words for person in the Greek and the Latin. They show the breadth of meaning of these words and help understand what goes on. But first, Boethius' definition of person, which has come under criticism by many. Since, therefore, the person is found only among substances, that is, among beings that exist in their own right, and of these among those capable of reason, and since every substance is a nature and exists not among universals, but among individuals, the definition of person has been found. An individual substance of a nature capable of reason. Slightly different. Rationalis is the usual rendition of it. Before I enter more into Boethius' definition here of the Greek and the Latin words, prosopon, according to the Brill Dictionary of Greek, pros means toward, and opos is the genitive, means appearance or sight. The first meaning, what is passively seen, a facade, a front, a face. For example, you can speak about the prosopon of the moon. Also, the face is called a prosopon. Interesting remark by Aristotle that among animals, only the human face is called a prosopon. There you already have a close relation to person. It's very interesting. But prosopon can also have the active sense of seeing. You can come into someone's sight, or you can say to somebody, get out of my sight. Derivatively, it can mean a theatrical mask, a literary character, a social position or level, and finally, an individual. What's his face? Prosopon. Important that mask appears relatively early. The first meaning is appearance, what is seen. Now, persona, there's uncertainty about the etymology. It may be Etruscan. That's what the Oxford Latin Dictionary is. Mask is the first meaning, worn by an actor. Can also mean then someone who wears a mask. Derivatively, a role in a play or in a literary work, an assumed character, a pretense, because a mask can be quite different from the face underneath. But then without pretense, the part played by someone in life, one's lot, the course of one's life. Then the actual being of someone, one's person. And 5, an important or outstanding person. So persona can have the connotation of excellence. And then any individual person can be named that way. Two texts of Cicero give you a sense of the breadth of the Latin persona. One text focuses more on role and the other more on the individual. Nature has clothed us, as it were, with two persons, one common, due to our sharing in reason and its excellence, and the other given each as their own, the particular circumstances in which we are born, etc. But in many other passages, persona is used for how we use it. The cause of the heir is just, he says in a trial, for there is no person closer to the deceased. That doesn't mean role, it definitely means that one. Who? That one. The specific strength of Boethius's definition is that it focuses on the one side of this broad range of meaning, namely on the pole of the individual person. It does not, in the same measure, focus on the pole of theological role and relation, that is, persona in the sense of even mission that one carries out. However, in Thomas's and Wojtyła's reading of Boethius's definition, both of those poles come into view. Thomas begins his analysis of the word person in the Summa, first part, question 29, article 1, with observation that there are different ways of being individual, different levels. Less perfect ways of being individual, more perfect ways of individual. That's very important, this ladder of perfection among ways of being individual. An accident, he says, such as shape, is individual. It's this and no other individual shape, only inasmuch as it is a way of being belonging to this stone and not to another stone. The stone itself, by contrast, is individual in its own right. And Thomas remarks that the word hypostasis is traditionally given to this way, to this more perfect way of being an individual. Hypostasis is etymologically exactly the same as substantia. Hypo in Greek means sub, and stasis is stance. Now quoting from this article, in a still more special and more perfect way, particular and individual is found in rational substances, which have lordship over their acts, and are not only acted as others are, but act through themselves. What's interesting is, he adds then, this is why the singulars of rational nature have a special name, and this name is person. So the window he uses onto personhood is acts of which we have dominion. Thomas uses acts over which we have lordship or dominion to focus on the way of being individual that belongs to persons. And this is the method used by Wojtyła in Person and Act. The whole second part of the Summa unfolds this focus on acts. In the prologue to the second part of the Summa, Thomas continues the focus on lordship. He says there, after what was said about the exemplar, namely about God and what comes forth from the power of God according to his will, we must next discuss his image, namely man, inasmuch as he too is the origin of his works, because he has free will and power over his own acts. And it's in this part of the Summa that Thomas unfolds the wealth of relations of human persons and communities with God, all under the image of a great journey back to God, which is our dramatic role, persona, in the sense of that Cicero uses it. The person given to us by nature and by grace. The similar place of person and act in Wojtyła's work as a whole should be seen in similar terms. That as you find, the discussion of person in the Summa relatively early, and the whole moral part follows afterwards. Person and act focuses on what is foundational in the whole architecture of human life. Without this foundation, his theology of the body would stand on fragile columns, that we are masters of ourselves in the face of the truth about the good is fundamental for everything that follows. Wojtyła's main interest, ever since he encountered St. John of the Cross's writings as a young student, was love. In the first place, the total gift of self to God. And in its light, the total gift of self between man and woman. That he undertook the labor of writing Person and Act shows a strong architectonic sense. Person and Act thinks through the foundations without which theology of the body would collapse into emotivism. Thank you very much. It's a short talk, but I hope we can have a lot of discussion about it.